Hi, and welcome to Building Leadership Through Communication. So, first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name's Shad. I've been a product manager at Google for 11 years, where I mostly worked on scaling products from zero point 0.1 to 1. I worked on Chromebooks and in the early days, and then I moved to Google Hangouts and Google Chat, and then to Wear OS, which is where I am today. Been very, very lucky to work with some incredibly smart people at Google and other companies. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share some of what I've learned with you. So let's get down to it. First, we're going to talk about your goal and how to measure success against that goal. Then we'll talk about 3 key aspects that you should be keeping in mind. First, structuring your communication. Secondly, the right level of detail. And third, how to cheat. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about goals. We're going to define your goal today as to be seen as a leader within your organization. And I've chosen the words pretty carefully there. That's what we're using as today's goal. Now, as PMs, clearly, we define our goals first and how we know we're hitting those goals. And there's no reason we can't do that too. So the goal here, to be seen as a leader in your organization. That's what great PMs are. We don't rely on a reporting structure. We don't demand that people follow our leadership and our edicts. We have to demonstrate it and bring the whole team along. Now, that organization, that could be a startup. It could be a team inside a product area in a larger company, or it could be a small company. And the tactic we're talking about today to hit that goal is to improve your communication. It's a super important tactic, maybe the most important one for leadership in the tool set. PMs need to know how to measure how we're hitting our goals. And we can kind of do the same thing here. This isn't like launching a product, so we can't measure MAUs or NPS or anything like that. We look instead at qualitative aspects. So things like, do your peers add you to meetings and ensure you're in the loop, even when they don't have to? That means they need your opinion. Second, over time, is your scope increasing? If so, your leadership want more of what you're already doing. Third, at any time, you can get active feedback just by asking people how you're doing. And you can always do that, but that's a little more tricky because asking the question can change the answer that comes back to you. Still a useful tactic. So we've talked a little bit about goals and measurement. Now let's roll straight into 3 topics we're going to touch today. The first one is structuring your communication. Firstly, don't skip this step. You might think, well, I want to express myself naturally. I don't want to appear stilted. I need to talk it out in order to think things through. Or maybe you just feel like you need to respond super fast and you don't have the time to structure things. But don't skip it. Here's why. No one else knows your area as well as you do. If you just blurt it out, your mind will fill in all the gaps in the message to form that coherent picture that you're trying to communicate, but no one else can do that. So to help everyone along, you should put together a logical structure to help them. And if you're worried that that's going to feel unnatural, the more you practice it, the more natural it's going to seem. Second, 3 bullets. There's a reason why most slides in most organizations have 3 bullets or 3 points that they're trying to make. It's enough to put in a useful amount of information and not too much for most people to get their heads around at once. I'm not saying you have to use a slide for everything, definitely. But if you're presenting a list of something, hold yourself back if there's a lot and just restrict yourself to 3 items. And as you can see on the slide, I'm trying to follow my own advice. Finally, don't repeat yourself. This is hard, especially if you're nervous. Now, you might have heard the advice of say what you're going to say, then say it, and then say what you said. Please forget this advice completely. It doesn't work. You, the PM, you have the confidence and the position to know that you're being heard. And if you're structuring your communication well, you only need to say it once to have it land. Now let's talk about how much detail to include in your communication. This is kind of a Goldilocks problem. So on one side of it, don't just state a conclusion with no supporting points if your audience isn't already well aware of them. Your audience needs to believe why you're saying what you're saying. So don't just blurt it out. But the much greater problem that I've seen way more often is PMs who know every little part of the project, because they're good PMs, include the meticulous details in their response, making an answer way too long, risking sidebars in the conversation, or risking an audience picking holes in stuff that's just not relevant. You're the PM, and the audience will assume that if you're saying something, it's important. If you talk through a detail or you mention a detail that's basically not important, you're putting out the wrong cue about it. So up front, identify the parts that you think are necessary to make the point you're trying to make and only talk through those. You can demonstrate your knowledge by batting away or responding to any questions that are follow-ups as needed. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about how to cheat. The brutal truth is that some people are naturally talented communicators. They're just phenomenal at it. And they find it easy to build rapport. They can walk in, hold a room, hold a crowd when speaking. I am not one of those people. I cheat. And here's how I do it. Firstly, I write before I speak. So you can do that in preparation for a meeting beforehand, or even in the moment if you're thinking of something to say. So you're in a meeting, some thoughts occur to you, grab a Post-it, a piece of paper, a laptop, whatever's closest to you, and write it down quickly before you speak. It will force you to structure your thinking and cut out irrelevant points. I personally find it better to write with a pen than type when doing this, but whatever works for you. Second, role play beforehand. So what I do is I sometimes grab a friend or a trusted colleague and role play the whole meeting before it happens. Helps me practice what I'm going to say and makes sure that I don't do things like repeating myself. But it also gets you feedback from someone that you trust so that you can understand whether your message is really landing or not. It's a big time investment. So I just save this for bigger meetings or bigger decisions that I want to present and make happen within the organization. And then finally, you can take the option of communicating before you communicate. So if you have an important meeting, grab the decision maker and talk it through with them beforehand. Grab the stakeholders, talk it through with them beforehand, and feed back their inputs into the message that you're trying to send. That helps your stakeholders feel like they're really part of what's going on, like there's nothing being imposed on them. That really helps things, helps grease the wheels. And secondly, it can get you to a decision so that when you step into the meeting, it's really just a formality. And at that point, you can walk in with complete confidence that the decision and the communication you're about to make is going to land. So that's all I'm going to share today. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for listening through our discussion today. I hope you found it helpful and take care. All the best.